Hey, welcome back. You know, with all this stuff going on over in the Middle East with Iran and Iraq and us taking out the number one general leading state-sponsored terror across the Middle East and the democratic reaction to it here in the U.S., to get a little closer look on what's happening out there, we bring in someone who is a big part of the Iranian resistance. And joining us now is Dr. Ali Safavi. And Dr. Ali, thank you so much for joining us today. He's an official with the National Council of Resistance of Iran, joining us via Skype. And I understand, Doctor, that you are in exile in France, but your organization is quite satisfied with Donald Trump's taking out of Soleimani.
Good afternoon to you, and great to be on your show. Obviously, I think that with the new administration, we saw an end to a policy of appeasement vis-a-vis the regime in Iran that was prevalent for nearly 40 years. But I think today, we see in Iran, we saw yesterday and the day before, and we also saw actually in November, when millions of Iranians took to the streets calling for the overthrow of this medieval murderous regime. And I think a trend has begun that cannot be reversed. Significantly, the elimination of the regime's top terror master, Qassem Soleimani, as the Iranian opposition leader Maryam Rajavi said, was an irreparable and strategic blow to the mullahs of Iran. He cannot be replaced, and I think the mullahs today are much weaker and more vulnerable than they have ever been. Well, and I think it is time. Go ahead.
That's really good news for us to hear, Doctor, but it seems that, you know, over in Iran, the mullahs and the ayatollahs, when things start to get out of hand, they shut off the internet and they start killing people in the streets. You're an organization that's fighting the resistance in Iran. What are the people in Iran, the common man and woman in Iran, how are they feeling right now about possibly blowing this whole thing open?
Well, I think the Iranian people are very determined, very encouraged. You're correct that the Iranian regime engaged in extreme brutality in November, killing 1,500 protesters, wounding 4,000 others, and arresting 12,000. It shut down the internet. But I think you cannot stand in the way of the tide of freedom. And I think if the events today, yesterday, and the day before in Tehran and 19 other provinces are any indication, one has to recognize that change is coming to Iran, and it's going to come much sooner than later. Iranian people are much more encouraged today, much more determined today than they were at any time in their history, particularly since our movement is very active within Iran for the past 3 years. The resistance units of our movement, the MEK, have been active all over the country, organizing, bringing people together, and of course engaging in acts of resistance, defying the mullahs, torching posters of the regime's leaders, Khamenei, Qassem Soleimani, the detested terrorist who was terminated last week. And so things look very positive, and I have every confidence that to the surprise of many, especially those appeasers in Washington, who basically have been, it seems, quite mournful that this vicious criminal was eliminated, will be utterly surprised to see that this regime will fall much sooner than anybody anticipates.
Dr. Safavi, a lot of us are seeing images out of Iran today with these protests, and some protesters refusing to trample on either the American or the Israeli flag. A lot of Americans who don't know much about Iranian culture and Iranian politics don't exactly picture Iran as a hotbed of support for the state of Israel. I am curious, based on the folks you're talking to who are still in Iran, what actually is the sentiment among the Iranian populace at this point? How many are, or you know, if you had to pin it down percentage-wise, how many tend to be supportive of the regime, and how many are in line with where you are in overtly calling for regime change?
That's an excellent question.
Agreed.
As to the first part of your question, let me say that one of the most popular and prevalent slogans in Iran was, "The enemy is right here. They're lying when they say it's America." So there's absolutely no illusion on the part of the Iranian people who their enemy is. You hear so much about talking heads inside the Beltway saying that, oh yes, the sanctions have hurt the Iranian people will unite around the leadership. The mullahs put on a hollow show of support during the circus that they had for Soleimani's bureau and all that. But I think, interestingly, that the protests yesterday, today, and the day before focused on four different things. One, everybody called for the downfall of the regime. One of the slogans was Commander-in-Chief resign. Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces, of course, is Supreme Leader Khamenei. Then they chanted death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the leader, meaning that they don't want anything to do with the past, they don't want anything to do with the present, they are looking to the future. And so in that sense, all of this propaganda that being decisive vis-a-vis these mullahs will make Iranian people rally around the flag is totally false and bogus.
Interesting.
As to the percentage which you ask, let me quote you from one of the candidates in the presidential elections a couple of years ago, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who was the mayor of Tehran for 12 years. During the presidential debate, when he was talking, he told Rouhani that you are the government of the 4%, meaning that 96% of Iranians oppose this regime. And after all, why should they support it? What has this regime brought to the people of Iran in the past 40 years? 70% of Iranians live below poverty line.
Yeah.
Inflation is running at 50%. 40% are unemployed. Iranians... Go ahead.
I'm sorry, we're actually running out of time, but we want to hopefully call upon you again to follow the continued unrest as these protests continue and as Americans are waiting and watching.
Well, there's a website, www.ncr-iran.org. For the latest news and information, they can go there and basically get a read up on what's happening inside Iran. It has up-to-the-minute reports, video clips from Iran. And so I think that I must tell you that after 40 years, one can sense that change is coming, and there's no question about it. Mahatma Gandhi said once that dictators and tyrants in history, and for a time they seem invincible, but they will always fall. And I think this is the case for the mullahs of Iran as well.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. I want to thank you very much for all your great insights, Dr. Safavi, and we'll keep you in our thoughts, and we'll have you back soon.